Hello Gateway Life Groups, I hope you're doing really well. I'm just going to give you a little recap of the sermon from Sunday and then point you to two other videos and some questions that you can use this evening. Well, we began a new series on Sunday and I talked you through a kind of introduction to this series, and I began talking a little bit about myself and my own experience over the last few years of making some new friends, particularly as I've been making music and that sort of thing. And I talked about how I began to realise over time that these friends that maybe seemed quite different to me and seemed like they had lots of different values, and the fears I had around that, actually it turns out that these friends are shaped really by the same values as I am at a foundational level. And it's given me faith that these friends could come to know Jesus. The aims for this series, or two of them at least, are for each of us to see how close our friends already are to the Jesus revolution, to the story of Jesus and to his gospel. And secondly, to perhaps lose some of the cultural shame that we've maybe gained over the last few years as Christianity has had a bad reputation, really. I mentioned the book, which I've got here, The Air We Breathe. If any of you want to, do feel free to read through that as we go through it. You might find that helpful, but no pressure. In the sermon I mentioned three ancient worldviews, so we went back in time to look at Babylon and Mesopotamia and ancient Greece, and we looked and explored these different worldviews where humanity was really seen as created from violence in order to be slaves for the gods. These worldviews where hierarchy was baked into the whole system. And we talked about Aristotle and Plato and their ideas of justice, their idea of maintaining inequality as justice, and how the Greeks and Romans felt that maintaining equality was part of that, and the cross was part of that. The cross was an awful instrument of torture and power used by the Romans to keep down rebellion, to keep down the masses. We looked at some graffiti from Rome etched on a particular wall in Rome that highlighted how ridiculous most Romans thought the Christian idea of the cross of Christ, actually was. You see, it's only Jesus who can explain how now we see the cross in such a different understanding. And it's only Jesus and his revolution that can explain so many of the values that we hold dearly and those around us do. You see, in the cross we find the idea of divine love, compassion and hope. In the cross we find that humanity is loved. We found that God came low so that he could lift us up from the ashes. The Jesus revolution has absolutely changed our culture, and over the coming weeks we're going to be looking and discussing some of these values that we hold dearly and everyone around us really holds dearly, and see how they've come from Jesus and see how he's calling us to live in the light of these. So if you would like to, I've also sent to your life group leaders the video that I used, a short 3-minute video which explains a little bit more about this in the sermon if you'd like to see that again, and then a further video which is about 1.5 minutes long from Glen Scrivener, again describing what he's doing in his book and giving you 3 questions to discuss in your groups. So I suggest you go next to the 3-minute video and then finally to Glen's video and have a look at the questions on the last screen and have a chance to talk about them and pray as we start this journey together. Thanks guys.